Hey everybody, welcome to Common Censored. I'm now live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Saturday is Common Censored with Eleanor Goldfield.
Hello. Apologies for the squeaky sound. If you hear that, we're not squeaking. It's a fan because I don't know if you noticed, but almost everywhere in the Northern Hemisphere is balls hot.
I'm not sure why that is, and we haven't really ever addressed anything related to said heat. So
Lee,
I don't know.
climates change. They have for millions of years. It's just a thing that happens. It has nothing to do with humans.
They have for
I'm tired of your propaganda.
They have for millions of years, over millions of years. You're forgetting the second part of the sentence, folks. Yeah.
Also, I have a great blog about the Earth being flat that I'd like you to read later.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good. I prefer when the Earth has luscious curves. Anyway, so I talked about this a little on the locals, leecamp.net live stream yesterday, but it was kind of breaking news, so I just addressed it for a few minutes. Many of you know, most of you know that abortion rights were essentially overturned by our lovely Supreme Court, our lovely, incredibly democratic, I voted them in, and I'm proud of my vote, Supreme Court. And yeah, so I'm actually going to, this is one of the few times I'm going to show an article at CNN. And this is one of those things, CNN or these other garbage news sites, they're good when there's a benefit to the ruling elite in covering something. So right now this benefits Democrats to have the real life story, the actual details of abortion rights being overturned. It's useful to the Democrats. So CNN is legitimately covering this, unlike, say, wars that the U.S. is creating overseas.
There's a point about that I'd like to make in a minute, but go ahead.
Okay. So this is, they're talking about how the front pages covered this decision. Houston Chronicle said Judgment Day. The Clarion Ledger, which I believe is the hometown newspaper of Albuquerque.
Oh.
Can you not step on my joke lines, please? I don't know if it's actually Albuquerque. I'm just making something up.
I don't think it's Poughkeepsie either.
Eleanor figures she'd make something up on top of me making something up. So
I was
really,
yes-anding you.
No,
you always get mad that I don't yes.
You yes on top of me. That's different. Herald Ledger says abortion now banned in Kentucky after Supreme Court ruling. And see, here's the thing. Many of these places have trigger laws that basically immediately outline abortion. Outlaw abortion when the Supreme Court, if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade, which is what they just did. So here is half of U.S. states could ban abortion as Roe v. Wade is overturned. Trigger bans already in place. Idaho, Wyoming, if that's a state, Utah, South Dakota, North Dakota, Missouri, Arizona, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Texas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky. Banned abortion prior to Roe v. Wade. Somehow they made that illegal when it shouldn't have been. Wow. Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Jesus, nice job, Wisconsin and Michigan. And then passed bans on extreme limits on abortion. Or extreme limits on abortion that could be enforced without Roe v. Wade. And, basically same states I just listed, but add South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia. All right. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, and I also wanted to point out that the maps that y'all are seeing and the point that was made that, what did it say, like bans in place before Roe v. Wade was overturned?
Trigger bans, yeah.
Well,
that are triggered by.
Go back to that page.
Okay.
And so banned abortion prior to Roe v. Wade,
right.
Which you kind of made the joke that shouldn't have been allowed. But this is kind of the point that's being made, is that Roe v. Wade was the absolute floor. This was the least that you could do to protect access. And as we've seen, it wasn't protecting access for the vast majority of people who required abortions. So Roe v. Wade being overturned is some bullshit, but I think it's very important to recognize that abortions were not accessible before this happened.
For many people.
So basically, and the way that this is going to work, right, is that states are going to decide for themselves, and the states that you assume would ban it were already working on banning it or making it as restricted as possible to begin with. So people in those states were already probably having to travel to other states. I interviewed someone, Jessica Pinkney from Access in California, and she was saying that a lot of people came to California from other states in order to access reproductive care there. So this is shit that's already been going on, and I'm not trying to diminish the importance of this, but I am trying to put it into context, because I think that this is really important to contextualize and make it clear what's happening here. And what's happening here is the end result that many of us expected for a long time, which was, this is what happens when the Democrats bitch and moan about something, but never do anything to codify it into law. For the past 50 years, the Democrats at any single point could have codified Roe v. Wade into law, but they didn't want to, because this really does wonders for them. It allows them to try and hang it over our heads in November, which you know that they will, and
in
push
whatever November Biden runs for office.
Yeah, all of the Novembers. And push out of our frame of vision the economy, climate chaos, the fact that nobody has fucking health care, the fact that Biden is passing stimulus checks for Ukraine, but not the US. The fact that, Judah Friedlander tweeted earlier, well, at least everyone's still free to get COVID if they want it. So like, this is the reality under the Democrats. But hey, everybody, look over here, shiny, shiny. Now you need the Democrats to stay in power because abortion. But they did fuck all about it before. They will continue to do fuck all about it now. Don't look at the shiny, shiny, everyone. Let's focus on how we can keep abortion accessible, which includes things like the abortion pill. You can find out more about that at, I believe it's abortionpill.info. But if you just Google that.
Can you pause for 1 second and let me say something?
Yes.
We'll get to ways to make it continue to be legal in a second. I just wanted to reiterate and maybe go a little deeper on what you were saying, which is, for many people, it has been illegal for a long time. And this ruling will continue what has been in place in many areas, which is a ban on abortion for poor people and for abused women. That is what this does. It just furthers that, because the truth is, rich women or women that are not rich women and those that are not in abusive relationships where they can't get any freedom have been and will continue to be able to exercise their abortion rights. They can fly to other states. They can jump in the car and drive and have the money to drive hours and hours away and stay in hotels and all these things. And so I don't want to just say it's poor women. It also is women that are in abusive relationships, so they could be quite wealthy. But if the guy treats them like a slave, then it's quite possible they still might not have this right. But that's what this continues. It's a ban on abortion for poor and abused women. This is not a ban on abortion for the wealthier and freer in our society.
Yes, it's absolutely a class issue, which in turn makes it a race issue. It's also a geography issue. A lot of people have pointed out that the ability for folks in rural areas to access any kind of healthcare, but definitely reproductive healthcare, is a huge issue. If you look at like the middle of the, like if you live in the middle of North Dakota, for instance, if you live in the middle of West Virginia, your nearest clinic might be hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And these are also, West Virginia is the third poorest state in the country. So your ability to get anywhere else, considering that you are likely very poor, is impossible, damn near. So it's a class issue. It is, of course, also then an accessibility issue in terms of geography. And then, of course, a race issue, because poverty does cut along race lines, just like every other issue in this country.
So I know I interrupted you. Let's get back to you were about to talk of ways women can continue to have some rights over their bodies, even in the wake of this insane ruling.
Yes. So I think one place that has a lot of great tools that folks can look at is shoutyourabortion.com. And this is a site that actually shares abortion stories from folks who have gotten them. You go to their site, shoutyourabortion.com, and you scroll down. One of the first things that you see is learn about abortion pills.
Supreme Court just shouted their abortion, which was this ruling.
I saw some great graffiti that said abort SCOTUS, which I'm so on board for that.
And I volunteered that we could do that by chopping off their scrotus.
Ah. So
I like when you sing your ha's to me.
ah,
Ah.
so basically, they've got some really great what's it called, resources that folks can look at, and of course they make the point, just like we have, that abortion access was never guaranteed by the courts, and it cannot be broadly eliminated by legal decisions either, especially now that we have abortion pills, and these are things that you can get in the mail. You can order them ahead of time to have on hand before.
Right. I think that's a great point to hit home here, ladies, and maybe guys in a loving relationship could help the woman in your life do this, but maybe order these pills ahead of time rather than waiting for the day where you go, holy fuck, I'm in this situation.
I think it's a great thing for mutual aid groups to stock as well.
Good idea.
Along with other medical supplies.
You could have it in a case. It says break glass in case of emergency, a little hammer there. You could have it some sort of a cord you can pull down, and then it comes down from the ceiling like the masks in an airplane. I think have these emergency pills on hand and just ready to go.
Amen.
In a Pez dispenser. with Samuel Alito's head on the top.
There you go. Shout Your Abortion also has links to miscarriage and abortion hotlines, online consults for abortion pills by mail, just more information about accessing abortion now that this is official. And so I think this is a great resource. Also, if you have a local abortion fund that you know of, please support them because they're going to be what's the word? Stretched thin coming up, because
slightly,
especially those abortion funds in states where people will have to go to or leave from. So
but I strongly encourage that if you are furious right now and you want to stand up and make a difference, there's a lot of ways to do that. There's a lot of ways to fight back for women's rights, to fight back against a increasingly fascist government. Please don't channel your anger into donations for Democrats.
No.
Is not federally. Some things can be a little different on local and state level, depending. But get in a real fight. Get in the real fight, not the fucking bullshit two-party corporate clown show that we are told is all that matters and is the only place you can have that energy channeled, that anger channeled, that fury channeled. Yeah, go out and fight for Joe fucking Biden. No, that's not the answer. And, the protests outside the Supreme Court that are going right now, thousands of people, I think there's a use to that in terms of making people aware of the harm that this institution can do. But I also think you should be aware that even before this ruling, and we talk about this many times, the Supreme Court is a completely undemocratic, completely oligarch protection center. That's what it is. It is the center of defending the oligarchy, the ruling elite. She's allergic to fascism, so it often happens when we get into these topics. But the Supreme Court is a fucking shit show. And it was a shit show before this. It was a shit show before RBG died. And people just waking up to this should have known this for a while.
And also, this is somebody tweeted earlier today, leave it up to the states was also the pro-slavery argument in the 1800s.
Right.
And I think this is a good case to make, that the U.S., when it considers people to be lesser than people, which is clear that they feel that way about women, that it ensures that these people do not have access to basic human rights, such as the right to control their own bodies. And you see this in the history of the United States. You see that in the present. And this is not something, just like with slavery, this is not something that you can vote about, right? I mean, slavery is still legal. And actually, there's a story that we're going to talk about that has to do with this issue. But this is not something that you can vote your way to gaining. And people are pointing out that SCOTUS might now take aim at same-sex marriage. They might take aim at, a whole slew of other decisions that were too progressive for the court. And
We're
this,
sprinting back towards the Stone Age, really, as fast as possible.
which I feel like is not fair to the Stone Age, because I feel like there were some really cool people in the Stone Age.
I don't know if they had gay marriage, though.
You don't know that? Well, what if they didn't have marriage? What if they were smart enough not even to have fucking marriage, right?
That's a good point. I'm giving you that one.
Thank you.
2 points.
Thank you. So I think that it's important to recognize the structural issues outside of the shiny. SCOTUS is fucking like a totalitarian entity, and nothing that is going on right now is something that you can vote to change in November, or next November, or whatever the following Novembers. So
all of the Novembers.
All of the Novembers.
I just wanted to spend one more minute on this issue and say this is another step in a long-standing battle against women. This didn't come out of a void.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just, oh my goodness, this one right that women had has now been taken away. The battle against women has been going on for hundreds of years, folks. And in many ways, marriage, we just made fun of the institution of marriage, but marriage is, a lot of it. And there are very progressive and enlightened marriages now. So I'm not saying you can't be married and have it be legit and equal now. But it as an institution came about in order to, essentially make sure women were enslaved to the man. Now, this doesn't mean there couldn't have been loving marriages in the past, but I think that the reason it exists in the first place, and the reason that women were attacked and made fun of and called all kinds of awful names if they didn't get married, if they were, God forbid, 30 years old, because, back then you lived to 32. And if you lived at like 18 years old, they made you mayor. It was back then. If you were 30 and unmarried as a woman, you were a fucking witch. You were a demon. You were birthed out of the volcanoes of the earth in order to curse other humans and destroy people's lives. And there's a reason that mentality and that idea existed. Like there's a reason that people were called witches if they were single and not married and, living on their own as a woman. So this is not new, an attack against women. Like,
not at all. It's a national pastime. And it continues. And I think when you reform if you try to reform this kind of, I hate using the word evil because it suggests that things are there are people that are inherently evil or whatever. But I think a reformed fascism is neoliberalism, and neoliberalism leads to fascism. So it's this really nice, circular, it's a circle of death.
Jerk.
Well, yeah, but a circle jerk could be nice if everyone's a willing participant.
If everyone's excited about it.
There's plenty of lube.
And there's not some terrible music playing or something.
Yeah, music is a big thing. Yeah.
Well, this brings me back to my one of my favorite jokes I've written that no one seems to appreciate enough. But you look at our society over the years and the way that we have treated women and what we've said about women. And one place you can look is you look at our statues in society.
Yeah.
What we have up as, because statues are put up as this is what you should look up to. This is what you should be in society. This is the pinnacle of a human being, and this is what we should really want to shape our own lives after, etc. I'm sure in your own towns you have statues of great people. And if you just look statistically speaking across the United States, apparently, judging by the statues, there have been far more impressive and successful horses than women, if you look at our statues.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does that say about the culture that feels a need to only put up statues of men and horses and very few. If your town has one, and like your state, if your city has one statue of a woman, that's a rarity. But anyway.
Yeah, I can't actually think of any that I've seen. Anyway, I also would like to point out that in Arizona at the Capitol building, police fired tear gas at protesters who were protesting the Roe v. Wade decision from like if you look at videos, they're like on the balcony. It looks like
Joke's on you, cops. We were already crying.
But of course, the Republican snowflakes inside said that it was a hostage situation, that they couldn't leave the building because of these protesters, and that it was worse than what Democrats say happened on January 6th.
I know. I love that the right wing snowflakes is their favorite thing to call. Now, there's plenty of good examples of liberals being snowflakes, but their favorite thing to call liberals and then sometimes call the left. And it's like, dude, what's more snowflake than being like, my bathroom could be used by someone who's, transitioning. This ruins my life. I can't get by anymore because
there are people outside that are angry about us being patriarchal fascists, and that makes me feel like I'm in a hostage situation.
I saw an 18-year-old with an Antifa thing on his shirt. Anyway. All right. So next topic about our amazing Supreme Courts. So the Supreme Court also ruled something about gun laws, but I actually didn't look that up.
I did.
Oh, sorry. I just had what Joe Biden signed into law. He just signed it into law, the new gun regulation, but we'll get into that in a second. Why don't you do yours?
Basically the Supreme Court, I like that they always say landmark decision, which
I know everything's
aren't they all landmark decision? Because that's what the Supreme Court exists to do. So it's like,
when was it like Supreme Court mundane, meaningless decision comes down
about parking, and it's like just ridiculous. So basically this it's a Second Amendment case. For those who don't know, the Second Amendment is the one that's so hotly contested. What do they mean? The right to bear arms. What does it mean? And so this past Thursday, the court struck down a concealed carry provision in New York, but it affects, of course, more than just New York, that would require gun owners who want to carry a handgun outside their home to prove that they have a unique need for self-protection. Which I like.
A unique need.
Well, yes, that's weird language. But also, why do you need a concealed carry out in the streets of New York, or really anywhere? And the justices in a 6-3 decision said that the restriction, which is a century old, was unconstitutional, making it now easier for millions of people to carry handguns in public. People have pointed out that this will affect 1 in 4 people in the United States, making it easier for them to carry their weapons in public.
So wait, this decision says that like in New York now you can open carry or
concealed
carry?
Because there's no longer a what's called a proper cause requirement. Because they don't have to prove that there's a specific reason that they need to have a gun on them out in public.
I'm just always scared. That's my reason.
So the case has now been sent back to a lower court, which will likely give the New York State legislature some time to adopt a new concealed carry application system. But basically, this is making it so that there's kind of a domino effect, and people are pointing out that other concealed carry restrictions in several other states, including California, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, where applicants must similarly prove to a licensing authority that they have a, quote, good cause or reason, or a, quote, justifiable need to carry a handgun, these could be affected. And basically that people wouldn't need to prove that they need any reason to carry a gun in public. And folks listening to this might be like, well, yeah, I mean, you could just lie on the fucking like paperwork, and yes, but I mean, and
you could say there are Ewoks after me. I know it.
These hoops that they have you jump through are really fucking small, or they're big hoops. You could just walk through them. It's like pretty fucking easy. But the idea is that there are now basically no restrictions to carrying a gun in public. And of course, then using a gun in public, right? Because that's why you have a gun, is to use it. It's not just there to keep your nuts warm. And so basically, this is.
Well, I've got an idea. You know what created many of the bans on open carry, like stopping open carry and things like that, was when the Black Panthers started walking around with guns in their neighborhoods, because the idea of black people having guns was actually very upsetting to the white ruling elite. So I think the solution to this is we should just like all black people should start walking around with guns, and we'll see how that goes.
I know. Well,
we'll see what the white ruling elite thinks of that.
If it's okay for one, it should be okay for all, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is another bang up job by the Supreme Court. But again, just like, I don't know if we've mentioned that on the show here, but it's like the problem with the gun laws in the US are manifold. And it's not just as simple as saying, oh, you need background checks and everything will be fixed. Oh, you need fucking a waiting period or whatever, and everything will be fixed. There is a far more large cultural problem of a culture of violence, a culture of individualism, of violent individualism, of white supremacy, of patriarchy. These things are of course amplified when there's a gun involved. But to suggest that, oh, if we just had background checks and we told people they couldn't have an AR-15, that's not going to solve the problem. And so there's a conversation around gun rights, around gun control, that needs to happen. And I also would just like to point out one last thing, which has to do with the Black Panther comment. The extreme right wing, and fascists, the alt-right, etc., and the police, which I'm being redundant, should not have a monopoly on weaponry. And I think that it's important to highlight that every community has the right to self-defense, and however that looks to you is something that you and your community should discuss. And the dangers, of course, of involving weapons in any kind of self-defense that you might engage in. But I do think it's important that the left not just take this stance that all guns are bad all of the time and we should never touch them. We shouldn't know how to use them. We should just walk away from this. I don't think that's the right course of action.
Yeah, all good points. This actually gets to something that you were saying about what will actually create any kind of change, will actually decrease these mass shootings. Biden proudly signed his landmark. There it is again. Landmark.
Okay.
Landmark.
Media literacy moment, everyone.
Gun control bill. This is from the BBC. Folks, it is a landmark, okay? I know some of you were worried. You were like, yes, we know he signed something, but was it landmark? Apparently there was a mark in the land that a lot of guys go out there and mark that land, and it was landmarked.
On this day.
So here's what he signed, and this is the most significant. This is the most significant U.S. gun control bill in nearly 30 years, signed by President Joe Biden, because there hasn't been any others.
I know. Wow, this is such a media literacy teaching moment. Because there hasn't been any. So of course
it's the most significant.
Of course.
There literally has been zero.
Oh my God.
Anyway, it imposes tougher checks on young buyers and encourages states to remove guns from people considered a threat. Encourages. What the fuck is a bill? What is a law that encourages?
Could you imagine one of those words?
Could you imagine, folks? It is now law that we recommend you drink water. Okay, from here on out, it is in the books. We recommend water is good for you. You should stay hydrated. It's a law that we recommend that.
But it's like, so let's say that they recommend that you not shoot people in the face. Well, then you still can, because it was just a recommendation.
We highly recommend you don't shoot them in the face.
So yeah, wow, encourages. It's like when Biden was elected, and then he was talking about how we had to do something about systemic racism, and he created this committee or something that was going to encourage all of these federal these federal organizations and
He's a committee making fool.
that would encourage them to look at their hiring practices and their office politics and make sure that they're not engaging in systemic racism. We would encourage them to do so.
We're going to lightly suggest that you do something about your racism, okay? And it's a law that we lightly suggest that. It is a law.
Also, we encourage you to get some of the donuts that are in the break room because they're delicious.
Yes, white people first. All right, so to go back to what exactly this landmark bill says. Because I want everyone to know this is a landmark bill. The reforms include tougher background checks for buyers younger than 21.
Oh my
50,
god! So
15,
that 11-year-old,
but once
is
you
really gonna have to fucking
well, and furthermore, once you hit 22 or once you hit 21, you can have the fucking craziest background anyone has ever imagined.
Well, but
You could have been the fucking demon from Stranger Things when you were 18. But as long as you're 21, your background can be fun.
well, and also by the time you're 21, like I get that some people start early, but like, how much fucked up shit could you have possibly done that's like on the record?
You stole a pack of Mentos from the 7-Eleven.
I mean,
Tougher background checks for people younger than 21. $15 billion in federal funding for mental health programs and school security upgrades. That doesn't,
security,
but also that doesn't need to be a fucking gun law. Just do that. Just a lot more money to mental health programs. That doesn't even need to be part. That's not a fucking gun law. Just a lots of money to mental health programs. It could be a mental health law. And we could be like, we gave some billions of dollars to have mental health programs.
But I'm also curious what the distinction is, like how much money is going to mental health programs and how much is going to school security upgrades, which could really just mean giving more teachers guns or putting more cops in schools, which it's been statistically shown that putting more cops in schools actually makes them far less safe, especially when you look at things like the Uvalde shooting, which we're going to talk a little bit about. The police protection as a concept.
And whenever people say just, the answer is to give teachers guns, please, I beg you, think for 2 seconds about your second grade teachers. And imagine, I didn't trust that. I didn't trust Mrs. Coates with a fucking staple gun. All right. I knew a teacher who was fired. This is actually true. She was one of my favorite teachers. I knew a teacher who was fired for spraying a kid with a fire extinguisher.
Shut up.
Yeah, he fell asleep in her class and she sprayed him with a fire extinguisher. And she got fired for that. Why would we trust teachers with guns? Have you met half of all teachers? They're fucking lunatics.
With a fire extinguisher?
To the good teachers out there. I don't mean you're lunatics, but there are some lunatics out there. I had another teacher who was so obsessed, and she was like 65, and she was so obsessed with Patrick Swayze. And he was like 22, and she had posters all over the fucking room and everything. It's so creepy because the kids, our age was closer to his age than her age to his age. And we were like, I think you're saying that you're obsessed with teenage men. But anyway.
Wow, it's like peeling an onion with you.
With me? What about her?
Well, that's what
anyway, to continue what's in this amazing landmark gun law. Funding to encourage states to implement red flag laws to remove firearms from people considered a threat. These all seem like just common sense. Like these should all be just state laws to begin. Like it doesn't even, I didn't even know this wasn't legal. Anyway, funding to encourage. Yeah. What is that? What is funding?
And how do you fund to encourage something?
Funding to encourage.
You just hire a guy to go.
No, it's one of those posters with the little kitty cats, that says like, hang in there. And it's got the cat with the claws in the branch. It says like, if you're trying to create more red flag laws, hang in there. And it's got the little kitty cat. And they send those posters to every state legislature. And finally, closing the so-called boyfriend loophole by banning all those convicted of domestic abuse from owning a gun, not just those who are married to their victims or live with them. So now if you beat your domestic partner, you can't have a gun. Basically, you have to already be a fucking awful human being to have the state even possibly take away your gun, and probably still won't.
Yeah.
Oh, this is I would have said this gun law that Biden just signed into law. I would say that it's meaningless, except every time I start to have that thought, I just remember it's landmark. It's a landmark law.
They got you. Well, and I also, just like we've talked about before, it really, really, really matters about enforcement. So, okay, so the so-called boyfriend loophole, who's fucking enforcing that? Like, who is it? Is it the local police? Like, and
like
let's,
they'd ever stop.
Well, lest we forget that, I can't remember the statistics on this, but like a large majority of police beat their significant others. So are they going to be the ones to take away the guns of and what if you're a police and you have to have a gun for it's like the enforcement of this shit.
Right.
Is really the key aspect. And nobody ever talks about this. Nobody ever talks about how it's going to be enforced in order to make sure that this loophole is closed. You can't just, it's not like, and then fairy dust, and loophole closed. Like, that's not how it fucking works. Like, why is this, like, I'm taking crazy pills.
You're forgetting about the billions of dollars to encourage this to happen.
Yeah,
that's what you haven't taken into account.
That's
and
true.
I really think you need to give Biden more credit for putting all that money towards encouragement.
Very good.
Honestly, like, so if it's not the poster with the cat, is it just like a guy that's like sent to like federal legislatures and stuff going, I believe in you.
Yeah.
You guys can
You
do
guys are
it.
doing great. Oh my God. Good job.
And there's like a trust exercise.
It's like, you know what it is? It's one of those posters with like the beautiful sunset that just says never give up on it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to say about Biden's landmark gun control laws?
I wish I could pee on it.
Okay. I think that was warranted.
Thank you.
You want me to go to this one next?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I'm actually reading from Anti-Police Terror Project that posted about this.
But I forgot to do this. By the way, in a minute, folks, we're going to cut off the feeds to Facebook, YouTube, and a couple of YouTube platforms. So we're going to be just at rumble.com/LeeCamp. So go to rumble.com/LeeCamp, and you can keep following and keep watching and keep commenting. It's all free to watch there. But the other feeds will be cutting off soon, and the rest of the show will be at rumble.com/LeeCamp. If you're watching there right now, then you have nothing to worry about. The stream will continue as is. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, so again, I'm pulling this from the Instagram account of Anti-Police Terror Project in case folks want to read along. But this was something that was brought up by them following what happened in Uvalde, but also pointing out once again how fucking useless. Well, not useless.
Sorry.
Excuse you. How dangerous the Supreme Court is, and how horrifically anti-democratic they are, and really like extreme right wing. So back in 2005, the Supreme Court decided that the police in the United States are not legally obligated to protect you. And I'll just give you some backstory. Unless, are we moving, or are we doing this first?
We're good. Keep going.
Okay. So this was basically a decision that decided that the police have absolutely no a quote to, it was a 7-2 opinion, ruled against Gonzalez that decided that this Colorado law requiring an arrest didn't matter. It says, quote, "We do not believe that these provisions of Colorado law truly made enforcement of restraining orders mandatory. A well-established tradition of police discretion has long coexisted with apparently mandatory arrest statutes." police discretion. So it's really up to them.
I love their discretion.
If
I've
they
always thought
feel